Okay, Martin, we are ready to rock and roll, man.
All right. All right, Zach.
So I'll go ahead and tell you about my crazy day. We'll get it out of the way, right?
All righty.
I recently took on a job as a para professional. I don't know if you know what that is or means, but let's call it like a teaching assistant for a special needs room.
Hmm.
I've got a son that has some special needs, so I'm used to the whole scene. I know some of the ins and outs of it. I was not ready for today, though. My day, start to finish, has been absolute insanity. A kid got in a fight on a bus. We had our room destroyed. There were kids running around the hallways. It's been insane all day.
Gee.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shake your head. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because I'm out here in New York. We haven't started school yet, and I'm thinking, wow, that's some welcome back to school.
No, yeah, it was a welcome back to school, all right. And I just took this job Monday. Like this is my second day.
Wow.
Yeah. Welcome to
Jumping
alternative learning.
jumping right into the fire, right?
I went to college. I graduated 8 years ago. I had full intentions of being a teacher, and something happened. One thing led to another. I changed my degree, and I went into the business management. I started running a building supply store. So I've been away from the education scene for 8 years, and I went to my son's IEP meeting, and someone from the district was there, and they were complaining about not having any paras. And I said, well, heck, I've got my bachelor's. She said, you've got your bachelor's degree? She said, apply for a job and I'll have you a new job Monday. Guarantee it. Sure enough, Monday came around. They're like, hey, you want this job? They asked me at the interview if I wanted it.
Yeah. I think there's a shortage, and this predates the pandemic, a shortage of people who can teach in special needs field, teachers and the paraprofessionals such as yourself. There's a real need for people to fill those positions.
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm going to give this para position a year and see how it goes. And there's funding available for master's programs if you want to have your own classroom and all that stuff. I'm considering it.
Mhm. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, because I just think and it's a growing field. We're learning more and more about how to approach the teaching methods with the students with special needs. And that has expanded and created more job opportunities for people in the teaching profession.
Absolutely. And both of my sons were born addicted to opiates. We adopted them both, so we knew there were going to be some behavior issues. And from what I've seen, while my kids do have some behavior issues, they're on the less needy end of the spectrum. We'll see how that goes as time goes on, but for right now, they seem to be doing all right with it.
Well, that's great. That's great. And they obviously you're very involved in their lives, and that's got to go a long way as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, enough with my personal life. I want to get to know your personal life. So, Martin, I listened to your podcast. Oh gosh, heck, has it been a year ago?
No, I started in November.
Okay,
Yeah.
I started listening to it pretty soon after you started making it, I guess. And I know I sent you a message. Hey, I like your podcast. Da 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 da. And then your what do you call her? Like your manager or whatever?
Actually, that's my wife.
Oh, well, she is your manager. You can go ahead and say
Yeah, yeah. So what's the difference? I mean, I can call her my manager, my boss. It's all the same.
So your wife sends me a message out of nowhere, and I'm going to be honest. At first, I was like, "Oh, this seems a little out of the blue and odd," but yeah, I'm glad that you guys reached out and wanted to be on the podcast.
Yeah, Zach. I just think it's really it's important as podcasters or people that are into. Even I've had YouTubers on my podcast. This isn't like terrestrial radio or network television where everybody's in competition with each other. It's like what we hope to have happen is people listen to your podcast, hear me, they tune in, hear some episodes, and vice versa, because you're going to be on my podcast tomorrow night. I'll be interviewing you.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that. And I think we all have similar goals, and working together, we're going to reach more people. And For me, I'm sharing something I'm very passionate about, which is a lot of fun. It's not work to me. When I have an opportunity to talk about the outdoors and getting out and the things to do out there, or trying to inspire people, I'm just having a lot of fun.
Absolutely. You know what? If you're not doing it because it's fun and you enjoy it, you're in it for especially podcasting, you're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yes. Yes.
Martin, you're a Northeastern guy. Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in a town called Kearney, New Jersey, and it's located between Jersey City and Newark. And from my front porch to the house I grew up on, you could see downtown Manhattan. So I pretty much grew up in a very urban type of area. It was New Jersey, and it's funny. How'd you get into the outdoors in New Jersey? Well, 45 minutes to an hour from my house was the Appalachian Trail. We had the Delaware Water Gap, and at 7 years old, my father was already getting me out there and exposing me to that. So, yeah, I grew up in New Jersey knowing there was more to it than oil refineries and a beach.
New Jersey is kind of odd because so there are hunting options out there. There were anyway. Black bear, I guess, is a big thing in New Jersey, and especially now that they've canceled the season for black bear.
Yeah, I don't follow it as much down to I'm living in upstate New York now, but when I was growing up, I grew up in the 70s. There were no black bears in New Jersey. There was no black bear hunting season. So I was already living up here when they decided to start hunting black bears again. And we went from there really not being, there were little to no black bear sightings in the state when I was a kid, to now you talk to Appalachian Trail hikers and they will tell you, oh yeah, I've seen at least 1 or 2 bears hiking through New Jersey. And I haven't been following. They don't know the reason why they canceled the bear season, but there is a population problem there. And, my position on hunting has always been, well, it's part of helping to balance the ecosystem, right? I mean, as long as you're just not hunting, shooting something for the sake of shooting it, but if you're hunting it and you're going to have food, put food on your table, well, then, you're contributing to the ecosystem. You're contributing to nature.
Sure. And I mean, the wildlife conservation model here in the United States is pretty interesting. We've got a pretty unique system, and it works by and large, especially if you follow the rules.
Yeah, well, like anything in life, there will be people who are going to break the rules, and those are the stories you're going to hear about. Unfortunately, you're not going to hear about the thousands of people that went out there, followed the rules, and did what they were supposed to do. But and that's just in life in general. Yeah.
And when you talk about outdoor recreation, that's kind of a blanket thing. There, in every recreational sport, people break the laws. Fishing, are there any laws? Well, littering if you're hiking.
Yes.
When did you move from Jersey to upstate New York? Was that like a long process?
Well, it was in 2004. I came up here for a couple of reasons, primarily because the housing market had just gone through the roof. It was like at that early stage of the real estate boom, and I had 3 children, and I wanted a bigger house. I wanted them to have a yard, and I started looking at towns in upstate New York and eastern Pennsylvania, and I now live in the outside of Binghamton, New York, and found a really nice place for a very affordable house. And living up here, I really love it. I mean, New York is such a diverse outdoor recreation, lots of opportunities for people. So yeah, that's kind of what drew me up here, was that being able to give my family in a nice house, nice yard, and having all these opportunities to do things outside, whether it's hiking trails, just visiting waterfalls, fishing.
When people talk about New York, I mean, it's always New York City, right? That's New York. How much of the state is actually super urbanized like that?
Oh, the vast majority of the state. And in fact, when you talk to some of the people that have grown up in this area, you'll detect a bit of a resentment, right? Our tax dollars are supporting New York City, and look at New York City compared to, you look at the map in New York State, population wise, I don't know what the ratio is, but it's pretty close that most of them live in New York City, most of the population. But when you get out of the city, it is very rural. You got a couple urban pockets here and there, but not urban in terms of New York City. I mean, a funny thing that happened to me about a year after I moved up into this area. Somebody had talked about the city. I've got to go into the city, and I'm thinking, were they driving 3 hours down to New York City? No, they were talking about Binghamton, which has fewer people living in it than the town I grew up in outside of New York City. And that's upstate New York is kind of like that. These little pockets of cities that have 50 to maybe 80,000 people living in them.
I can sympathize with that. Where I moved from in Southern Ohio, the whole county I lived in had 70,000 people. Like our city, the big city that I worked in, I think the population was 20,000. And it's funny, you cross the river into Kentucky, and all those people that lived in those hollers and stuff, they would say, "Oh, we're gonna take a trip up to the city," and they were talking about the place I was at, and they were scared to death. They hated it because it was so busy and so hard to navigate, and it's a ghost town.
Yeah, and it's all perspective, right? Growing up in New York City, any city I go to in the country is going to look small. Okay, there's my little bit of my New York pride there, right? But maybe
Now,
Chicago or Los Angeles come close, but no, we're the big guys in the block.
There's always a negative connotation with New Yorkers, right? They're always very mean and not very hospitable. How did you escape that? Because you don't seem like you're that persona.
I was at a training session. It was a 4-week training session down in Georgia, and there were people from as far south as Florida on up to like New Hampshire that were there along the East Coast. People from along the East Coast, and at the end of it, I'm sitting there with this guy having lunch who I'd become friends with, and he goes, "I got to tell you, I'm a little surprised because when I heard you grew up outside of New York City, I expected somebody who was a little rougher, vulgar, maybe, kind of brash. You're an okay guy. You're a really nice guy. You don't seem like somebody that grew up in New York City." I didn't know what to say. Like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Yeah, well, the easy thing is we're not all buttholes. It's okay.
That's right. Yeah, right.
The outdoor opportunities for New York, you kind of said there's a lot of them. What are some of the things that really impressed you or surprised you about upstate New York as far as getting outdoors?
Well, from where I live, I'm about 40 minutes from the city of Ithaca, which has Cornell University and Ithaca University located in it. And around there are these beautiful waterfalls. So you could take trips up there on weekends with even children. These aren't what I would call challenging hikes in terms of hiking miles to get to it or up steep mountains. These are just nice hikes where you can really take in some beauty. And the whole Finger Lakes region offers you that. In fact, we were just up there it was last week. We're doing this Views and Brews challenge, my hiking buddies and I. So we went and visited some of the waterfalls. So that's just one part of the Finger Lakes region. There's the Finger Lakes Trail, which I've hiked more than half of at this point. And again, it just takes you through these. The Finger Lakes Trail goes to an area where it's, again, not as steep or challenging as the Adirondacks or the Catskills, but you get to take in a lot of beauty, a lot of farmland, a lot of uniqueness to it. And then we have the Catskills, which gives you another experience. So, each region can kind of give you a different experience, which I think makes New York unique. I think there's definitely other states that do that. I know California has that going for it. And then you can go up to the Adirondacks and you have these high peaks you're climbing. I remember the first couple of times I did that, you scale these peaks, you climb these, and you're saying, "Wow, look at the beauty of this." You're staring out there at just nothing but mountains and this feeling of, wow, we're really in the wilderness and isolation. And for somebody who grew up in New York City, that sometimes could be a little overwhelming, and especially people coming up from the city saying, "Wow, this is, not far from where I live. And wow, I'm really having a wilderness experience." And that's just the hiking aspect of it. There's a lot of paddling opportunities for people. Again, up in the Adirondacks and there's lots of rivers and creeks that people go paddling. Fishing. I know everybody claims to be the fly fishing capital of the country or the world, but Roscoe, New York, which is located in the Catskills, that's a big deal there, is fly fishing. There's just such a variety. There's rock climbing in the winter. Of course, there's skiing and there's ice climbing for the people that are really brave. To me, climbing up on rock on ice, just, I don't know, ice melts, right? And it cracks and breaks.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me a little nervous.
You gotta be easy with the fly fishing stuff because I'm in Colorado and they're pretty big on their fly fishing out here. So I might edit that part out about Roscoe. I don't know. We'll see.
My son lived in Great Falls, Montana for a while. And he was saying he had met somebody and they knew about Roscoe, New York. And And he was like, well, we've got the best fly fishing out here. I know you people out in the Catskills like to think you do, but we really have it here. So my son didn't know, he doesn't fly fish. He didn't know anything about it, but he thought it was funny and told me.
So with all your outdoor experience, when did the idea for starting a podcast about it kind of blossom? What was the beginning of it?
Well, in 2016, I had stepped down as a volunteer with the Boy Scouts. I had been volunteering for almost about 22 years. And my youngest son had been out of Boy Scouts for 2 years at that point. He was away in the Air Force. And I was feeling, all right, it's time for me to step away. I'm looking at these parents who are now younger than I am. And, they really need to be the people who are in those volunteer roles. I enjoyed the time I got to work with the kids, but I thought I needed to give other people those opportunities. But I said, I still want to be involved. I still want to be out there hiking. And my wife actually came up with the idea. And she goes, if you leave Boy Scouts, you'll have a lot of time to do a lot of the hiking you want to do. You won't have to say, well, is it too difficult for 11-year-olds or is it challenging enough? No, you can go pick what you want to do. And instead of going to summer camp, you can go backpack on the Appalachian Trail or the Long Trail in Vermont for 2 or 3 weeks if you want. And that got my attention. I was like, okay, I'm good with that. All right. And so since then, I was like, I was able to go out and do these things, but I wasn't able to really share them in the way I could when I was in Boy Scouts, where I was able to speak in front of groups. I even was teaching classes at some points while I was in Boy Scouts about outdoor experiences. I led high adventure excursions where we took kids on multi-day backpacking trips on the Appalachian Trail and overnight canoe trips. But I really had this urge in me to really want to talk about it some more. And I started thinking about podcasts. It was actually my middle son, though. He was visiting and he said, Dad, you've got all this information, all this knowledge. Just start a podcast. Just do it. And he sat me down in November when he was visiting and set the whole thing up on me. He said, you see, it's this easy. He actually talked to me all through it. And he's been a huge help and played a major role in getting this started.
So that was it. Just
my son, doing what I had to do to him, I guess, his whole life, give him a kicking the butt here and there to get him going. And he said, Dad, just do it. It's this easy. And then with a podcast, you can go on there and talk about you can share your passion for the outdoors and with other people and invite people on to talk to them about it.
When you first started your podcast, did you have an idea of where you wanted it to go? Like for me, I thought about having like a niche, something that I talked about specifically, but the more I thought about it, the more bored I got. And I didn't want to limit myself that way. Did you have some kind of niche you were trying to fill at first?
Oh, yeah. And it sounds like we might have gone through the same evolution here. Papa Bear Hikes. Yeah, I thought I was going to be able to talk about backpacking and hiking nonstop and wouldn't have a problem doing that. And I did one episode and I said, wait a minute, I can't do this like constantly. And if I could, who's going to tune in and listen to it? I mean, eventually it's not going to take long. I'm just going to run out of interesting things to talk about. And so it was shortly after that, I said, no, I need to expand this. And then, the next step was, okay, well, I want to make this about inspiring people, encouraging people to get to the outdoors, and then saying, okay, well, let's look at maybe some of the things that might keep people from going out and enjoying the outdoors, and let's bring that into this, and let's now make outdoor education a part of this. So we've kind of taken all those aspects, and I guess if you were going to put them in a niche or label them, maybe it's promoting outdoor conservation and enjoying the outdoors is really what I at this point what I've evolved into and where I'm comfortable talking about.
Sure, that's the one thing I enjoy about doing this type of thing. I get to talk to people that do things that I can only dream about doing. It gives me a little bit of inspiration. It makes me think, okay, if that person can do that, I should be able to go and do my little fishing trip somewhere and not feel bad about it.
Yeah,
the sheer volume of guests you have on is astounding to me. You put out, how many episodes do you put out?
I do 3 a week, and under normal circumstances, one of them is just me talking, and I'll have 2 guests. But right now, we have done. This is more my wife than my work. We've lined up so many guests that now we're just like doing 3 interviews a week.
How do you manage all that? How does she manage all that? Does she edit them and put them out, or do you?
No, she contacts the people, I'll find something that's interesting, or she'll come across somebody who's interesting, and she'll say to me, "Oh, what do you think about this person? Does this sound like somebody you might want to interview on the podcast?" And then she reaches out to them. And once we book the person, then I take it from there. I do all the editing and the recording, and I get it all set up for it to be launched. And then she'll do a description, and then she takes the ball from there. She'll do a description. She'll contact the person we interviewed, do the promotion end of it, and so it's definitely a team effort.
She's a trooper. You guys are both troopers. I struggle doing 1 a week. I couldn't imagine trying 3.
Yeah, there have been times where I've thought, maybe I just want to go back to 2 a week. And before I know it, it's like blowing up. And she's saying, "Well, I've got 4 people lined up this week." So, and I'm like, I went and cut my grass this afternoon, and I'm like, I haven't been out here in days between the rain and interviews and then work. When I'm falling behind in things I need to do.
Going back to your Boy Scout experiences, were you in the Scouts when you were young?
Briefly. I grew up in an area where Boy Scouting wasn't very popular. I ended up playing more sports than Boy Scouts. And unfortunately, that was at a time where I almost felt like you had to choose. You're going to do Boy Scouts, or you're going to do these activities. There wasn't as much of do everything. I mean, right now, I think and I saw a lot of this when I left Scouts, kids their time being very mapped out for them. Okay, you're going to have soccer practice, go to Boy Scouts, then you're going to, the next day you're going to do this. When I was growing up, it was like, okay, you're not going to do everything. You want to play football, then okay, you're not going to have time to do that because you'll need time for school and other type things in your life. So no, I stayed in briefly and ended up, like I said, in a situation where I gravitated more towards sports.
In your experience as a scout leader, then, how important did you feel that it was that you got those kids out and in nature as often as possible?
Oh, it was, I would hear this from the parents. We're living at a time where there's the battle of the technology, getting the kids away from the TV, getting them away from their video games. So yeah, I think that we, now more than in any period I think in scouting's history, getting kids out there is so important, right? Getting them to discover the other things that they can be doing in life rather than sitting in their house playing a video game. I'd have parents telling me that, "Oh, my son, he's in the house playing video games all summer. I'm glad he's finally going to summer camp." When I was growing up, I rolled out of bed at breakfast and I was outside until dinner when it was time to come home and eat. And then if I was lucky enough, I'd go back outside until it was time for me to go home, until my parents told me I had to go home. But the scouting program now, it's the education, because now we know more about outdoor ethics, but just getting these kids out there to learn about it. And I think it's contagious. I see it with the kids. I've had kids on my podcast. They're not kids anymore. They're adults who are still doing these activities now.
Well, sure.
And
you got to teach them young. If you don't teach them young, they're not. It's really hard to get older new people into the outdoors, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and I've seen this with some of my friends and people I've spoken with. It's easier to learn a lot of things when you're younger, right? They'd say it's easier to learn a language. You don't have the fear of things. I think you become an adult, those fears start to take over, or you start to tell yourself, well, I'm getting older. I can't do this anymore. I'm 40, 50, 60. I'm too old to be getting out and doing those things. Well, that's nonsense. There's just, you don't have to go climb Everest. You can find a park near you. You can walk anywhere, or there has to be an interest you have. Maybe you fished when you were a kid and really enjoyed it. Well, find a lake or a river or stream that you can go fish and pick it back up. You can do that at any point in your life.
Absolutely. The kids that you would take out after, let's say you do a hike and you finish the hike, did you guys ever sit down and kind of debrief the hike and talk about what they enjoyed most about being outdoors?
Yeah, we would after every activity we'd do what was called roses and thorns. So we'd have a circle and everybody'd go around and say, "Okay, this is my rose and this is my thorn." And that was always fun because usually by the time you got to the last kid too, you'd be sitting there saying, "Okay, so there's one thing that stands out they really loved," But then there's like these little things, well, I wasn't too crazy about breakfast, or my shoes hurt, or I was getting a blister. That might be their thorn, but you always found that one. There was always something in common that they all loved, whether it was maybe one day we sat and had lunch somewhere where there was a beautiful view. On one of our week-long high adventure trips, we saw a rattlesnake.
Ooh.
And at the time, that was like, wow, you could see, there were, the nervous, you can see a nervous look on not just the kids, but the adults' faces, but we were far enough away. Right. But at the end of the day, before we went to our tents, everybody was talking about how cool that was. They actually saw a rattlesnake while they were hiking.
And that's something. Moving out west has really opened up my eyes to the threat of things that can kill you, because we have mountain lions, black bears, rattlesnakes. And every time I go hunting, I'm always a little leery that a big cat is watching me.
Yeah, all my hiking's been in the Northeast, and I've talked about doing possibly the Tahoe Rim Trail, and I've even looked at the Colorado Trail, and it's that can definitely make you a little nervous. I've talked about hiking. My wife wants me to look into hiking in Florida, and I said, well, there's alligators down there, and she always points out, look, you hike in an area, and you've hiked in areas where there's lots of black bears. You could probably do. I don't know. Those cats, I know how a pet cat can be, how slick they can be when they're that big and they can move that fast. That's a lot to have on your mind.
The cats scare me way more than the bears.
Yeah. I could see that because like I said, I've heard the stories. They can come out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. So you've never been out west hiking?
Just a little bit. I've done a little bit in Montana, a little bit in Washington State, but nothing significant, nothing to the level that I really want to. And like I said, there's a couple of hikes out west that I'm looking at in addition to the Colorado Trail and the Tahoe Rim Trail. I've been looking at the Wonderland Trail, which circles Mount Rainier in Washington, and the John Muir Trail, which goes through California.
The area that I live in, it's a very arid climate. Everything's brown and gray. I recently went back to Ohio for 3 weeks to visit, and I was astounded by the amount of green and the amount of humidity that I had to suffer through. I was miserable every time we went outside. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Is that something you guys deal with up there? I mean, is it hot?
Oh yeah. Today there was a heat advisory. That's probably the biggest challenge of hiking in July and August. I mean, something I struggle with now that I'm in my 50s is keeping myself hydrated. I sweat a lot, and so in these conditions, keeping myself hydrated is a challenge. And as far as I visited other areas, right? And I'll come back here and go on a hike, and it's like night and day. And you go on hikes here, and you feel like you're hiking through a green tunnel sometimes. Where you just pop out the other side to a road crossing, and oh, okay, there's the sky again. But and the heat and the humidity, it's I felt it today out there cutting the grass, and
I've cut my grass a total of 3 times this year.
I've cut mine that much in a month, or maybe more. With the rain, the combination of the rain and the warm weather, I feel like it looks like it needs to be cut about every 5 days now.
I've figured out the key to not cutting your grass in Colorado. Don't water it, and it just turns into a brown patch of dirt. You don't have to worry about it. It's fine.
Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, we have a sprinkler system here that comes over in the form of a black cloud a couple times a week, and in this time of the year, maybe once a day, and just drops a big bucket of water on the grass.
It's interesting, the difference. So I just finished a book called Cadillac Desert. Have you ever read it?
I haven't read it. I have heard about it, though.
So it's talking about the water issues of the West and how they were essentially, they created these little pockets of civilization that otherwise shouldn't be here. And all these places are operating on a deficit because water just isn't that available here. We'll take the region I live in, the Denver, northern Colorado area. This is an area that technically probably shouldn't support, I think, like half the people that it does. But, back in the Depression era, coming out of it, Roosevelt instituting all the dam building projects, they've placed so many dams on the Colorado River just to supply water to various places. So I came from an area where water was not an issue. The Ohio River Valley, holy crap, it flooded every year like clockwork. And now I'm out here where there's no water, and it's really been a tough struggle for me. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Northeast is the same. There's never a shortage of water. In fact, this year when I was out on my backpacking trip, you literally could. I don't think you needed to bring more than a liter of water with you the entire time. You were always going to find a place to fill up your water bottle, or to filter water. But parts of the Southwest in particular, and again, technology, we could say it's a great thing, but we don't know what the long-term effects are of it, right? When those dams were being built, that was like an answer to a problem, right? Mm-hmm. People can live here if we dam this water, but we didn't look far enough ahead to say, there could be a problem down the road here. We're fixing something today, but in 60, 70, 80 years, are we creating another problem?
And it all goes back to education. You mentioned briefly that, with your experience with the Scouts, you had some opportunities to educate people about outdoors and conservation, all that stuff. Is that something that you feel like should be brought into the public sector more? Because out here in the West, for example, there are several places that have outdoor recreation instructors, like it's part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. I never experienced that back east.
Oh, I absolutely believe it should be part of school curriculum. I think it could be worked into science classes at any level for kids to start learning that, to start ingraining that notion of that nature is finite. We can and have destroyed nature. All right, we have destroyed parts of our country. We have areas that trees will never grow in again. They became hazardous waste sites that maybe take decades before they can regenerate. Absolutely, I think environmental science is way overlooked, and that's nothing new. I mean, I was fortunate in high school. We had an environmental science club, and it was a biology teacher that led it, and so I was able to get a lot of environmental science education through him at a young age. But absolutely, I think it should be a part of every school's curriculum, and getting kids and working field trips into it. There's not a place in the country that you can't work a field trip in. Giving kids the opportunity to get some hands-on learning, eyes looking at the beauty and learning how to preserve and conserve anywhere. That can be done anywhere in the country from any city.
And it feels like educating people is the critical missing piece. We'll take fishing, for example. Teaching people how important it is to not leave fishing line that's been spooled up just on the bank. I don't know how much experience you have with that, but every time I go fishing, I see just balls of fishing line that I've got to pick up. I want to say it's because people are just careless and lazy, but I think a bigger part of it is they just don't know what they're doing to the environment.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I think at this point, anybody under 60, even 65, I think we've heard enough about this and understand the detriment of not cleaning up after ourselves when we're outside. But so some of it could be just not knowing, right? I hate the idea of thinking that an adult would go out and just throw their fishing line to the side and leave it there thinking it's harmless. If anything, it's unsightly for the next person that goes there to fish to have to look at that. Sure. As a fisherman, right? You get to a nice fishing spot and you have to look at somebody leaving a mess behind. That's not, that kind of takes away from the experience, not off to a great start. So I'd hate to think that these are adults with any kind of knowledge of what should and shouldn't be done in the outdoors. So, and some of it could just be kids because, a lot of times kids in some areas can just go out and fish on their own. They don't need that adult supervision. And some of it, maybe they just don't know any better.
You say that. You don't know how many piles of dog poop that I've seen, like bagged dog poop off to the side of the trail. And I know they're adults because I've passed them.
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody about that today. And we were saying that it's National Cleanup Day. And that came up, that specific topic. And yeah, I'm going to go through the trouble of putting it in a bag, but I'm going to leave it here in a trail, or I'm going to just wing it into the woods. If you're going to, all right, so I'm going to preserve it in a plastic bag, so it's here a little longer and a little bit more unsightly. I,
It's unbelievable, especially in a place like Colorado, because here you think all the outdoors is a sacred place. The Rocky Mountains, I mean, my goodness, it's almost the epitome of wilderness. And there are still groups of people that just take it for granted and leave piles of dog poop everywhere.
yeah, in Colorado, you've just got a beautiful backyard there. I just like to look at when I hear those areas. If you got like this beautiful backyard with all these beautiful things you can do there, just probably you probably don't have to go far from where you live to find some great experiences for any kind of outdoor experience.
Yeah, no, I'm 45 minutes from Rocky Mountain National Park.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I can sit on my back porch. I can see 2 or 3 14,000-foot peaks. It's really something. But you know what's funny? My family comes in from Ohio, and right before they leave, they always say, "I don't know what you like about it here so much. It's not any better than Ohio." And I've got to say, well, yeah, maybe it's not any better, but it's way different. It's a whole different world.
Well, yeah, I think some of it is you've got to embrace that difference. Some people don't do well with change, I think. And then
They do not.
myself, I embrace change.
Now, my family is the very epitome of Appalachian. We were a family unit. We were a tribe. We grew up on the same piece of property. And me leaving the coop, they did not handle that very well. They don't understand it.
yeah, I've got a bit of that in my family. Even though, being from New Jersey, I'm the oddball that said, no, I'm going to go move to upstate New York and enjoy the outdoors. I want the outdoors to be not far from my house where I can just go for a nice hike when I want or go kayaking.
In all your podcasting experience with who knows how many guests you've had on at this point, are there a couple that really stand out as like that person really was super interesting?
Oh, so many. Boy, this is like a Sophie's Choice type question, right? Who's my favorite? Who's the best? There's so many good ones, but God, I just interviewed a family, the Sutton family. Okay, here's a very interesting and enjoyable conversation I had. They hiked the Appalachian Trail. They through hiked the trail with their 5-year-old son. They didn't carry this kid. This kid hiked the trail.
Oh
Okay.
my goodness.
He may. It's quite. They're looking into this. He quite possibly could be the youngest person ever through hike the trail without the assistance of being carried at some point or another. I just wow, what a great first day of school. What'd you do this summer, little Johnny? I went and took a really long walk from Georgia to Maine with my family. Right? I mean, what a great way to start the school here, right?
Wow.
So yeah, they were a lot of fun to talk to. I had Liz Thomas on, which that was one of those interviews where I'd been reading her column in Backpacker magazine and following her. So that was like one of these things where I was just like, wow, I'm talking to somebody that for years I've been reading and following. So that was really fun. And then a very special young man I've had on is a young man with spina bifida, my friend Enoch, who lives up in Maine. And boy, what a courageous man. He rock climbs. And right now he's working on a website for people who want for trails, for accessibility to trails in northern Maine. Mm-hmm. So people can find a trail and say, all right, I can do that trail. If I'm in a wheelchair or any limitation to my mobility, here's somewhere I can go and enjoy the outdoors. He's pretty much dedicated his life to trying to help others do the same.
That is amazing. Just the quality of people you can meet. And it's fascinating that it's individuals that are driving a lot of these pushes to make the outdoors better. I feel like a lot of times as a society, we sit down and we wait for, big brother or big government to come in and solve all of our problems. And I don't think that's the way we should look at it. They're there for a reason, but it's up to us to kind of help our outdoor spaces on our own.
Yeah. And if there's one thing I've learned, Zach, is that, when I've talked to these people from some very diverse backgrounds, you start to learn that, we're really the answer. We have the power. We have the power to go out there and make the change, and do good things, whether it's doing it's a cleanup effort, or maybe taking somebody along with us on an outdoor experience that's never done it, maybe taking time to help a child learn how to enjoy the outdoors, whether it's fishing or biking or something. Or maybe, it's that person who's just, hey, I can't do this because, I had hip surgery a couple of years ago. I'll never be able to hike that far anymore. I'll never be able to kayak again. And we can empower ourselves to do this. And then there's the other side of it I always like to look at is that the more people we have out there doing this, there's, we build the strength in numbers, the whole strength in number side of this. So the people that are in a position to make these decisions when it comes time to allocate money and resources, we have a voice. We're giving ourselves a voice.
That's fantastic. And you're adding another voice to it. You're working on a book.
Yes, I am. Yes.
I want to talk about the book a little bit because to me, the process of writing a book is fascinating. I'd love to sit down and write one, but I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, what was did your manager tell you to sit down and write all your stuff down?
It started to get the recognition for hiking the long trail end to end. You have to submit a journal. And my wife looked through it. She did the proofreading for me and said, this is interesting. This is almost like an outline for a book. There's a story here. So I just, and it's been a long and sometimes very painful process for me where I've had to walk away from it. When I say painful, it's like, but motivation to do it or feel like I don't have anything else in me to add to it. But it has really been great for me to be able to go back. It's been 3 years since I finished a trail, and now I'm doing some finishing touches and I'm still like going back and saying, wow, I really loved that day. I'll read a paragraph about something I did. Wow, that was a great day. That was a fun day. In the 200 pages or almost 200 pages, I haven't found anything I've said, that was a horrible day. That sucked. I really wanted to go home that day. So, and it's not like it's all, rainbows and unicorns. I don't glorify it. Yeah, there are times when it's difficult, but it's been kind of a motivator. But writing the book itself, that's she throws out ideas, your next book. I said, my next book. I said, let's see if I survive this one without going into, drug rehab or in Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, it's, not that I'm on drugs or abusing alcohol, but it's sometimes it kind of pushes you a little bit.
What's the actual title of the book?
Switching Gears. And I picked Switching Gears because I started out in 2016. I was going to through hike the long trail. I had knee surgery that year. And I said, okay, so I got a full year now to get myself back into hiking shape. I can rehab my knee, go through my gear, refine any gear I need to, get enough shakedown hikes in. And I did that. And I felt I was ready. I was ready to do this. And I went up to the long trail, and I'm not going to give a lot away here, too much away here, because there's a whole story leading up to it. But I ended up hurting my knee. Nothing terrible, but enough for me to say, oh crap, did I re-injure this thing? Am I like right on my way to another surgery? And I went the next few days where it just didn't feel like it was getting any better. And I had to make a very painful decision, emotionally painful decision, that is. Mm-hmm. And that was to not through hike. I had to say, okay. And I had my oldest son with me. He hiked the first section with me. And I remember asking him, this is something that's like ingrained in my memory. It's like, does this make me a failure if at this point I say, I'm not going to through hike, and he actually just wanted to turn and said, no, because how many people never even get themselves out here and do this for like a day or, won't even do any part of this because you're out here to have fun. So that made me feel a lot better. But then from there, it kind of snowballed into, well, I'm going to go back and do some more, and then I finished it up in 2008. So switching gears kind of is maybe the emotional transformation I went through. The long hikes have that ability to be transformative if we allow them to. We shouldn't go out seeking for that to happen. But if we allow ourselves to just kind of take everything and enjoy ourselves and enjoy the moment, it could be transformative. And for me, what happened is I think I was running from a fear of failure. It's not that I don't fail. I certainly have my fair share of failures, but it's something that in my mind, I think my whole life has kind of plagued me. It's held me back from doing things because it's like, well, what if I fail at this? And the message, and it's not a messagey book, but I think maybe what I'm trying to convey to people is, you go out there to have fun, it has to be fun. And if you get out there and you say, you know what, I'm hiking these 300 miles, no matter what, are you really having fun? If you get halfway or 3/4 of the way through and you're in pain, or you're all you're thinking about is, oh, I'm going to be finished in a week, or I'm going to be finished in a few days. That doesn't sound like you're having fun to me. So my approach came, I'm going to be more like a vagabond. I know I'm going to leave on this day to go up on the trail, and I would tell my wife, I might be back next week. It might be 2 weeks. If she'd give me a number of days I could be gone for. It wasn't like I can go for months, but and she said, okay, just let me know when you're coming home. Make sure you keep me updated where you're at. And I just felt like it was such a much more enjoyable experience when I went back and took that approach. That it wasn't that pressure. I'm gonna through hike this thing. It's like, no, I'm gonna hike until I feel like I've hiked enough for this year or this week.
That's a very good mindset to try to normalize. You're right. A lot of people really put a high emphasis on not failing, and just getting out there is a success. And that's what we've been trying to talk about on our podcast anyway, is don't worry, like you said, don't worry about trying to climb Mount Everest. Just go walk in a park somewhere. That's success. That's getting outdoors. That's getting motivated outside, healthy, and you're seeing parts of your community you haven't seen. That's a baby step. Maybe you realize, oh my, I enjoyed that walk around the park. There's a river trail close to me. Maybe I'll like that more. And eventually you've got a full-blown outdoor recreationist.
Yeah, for some people, just a walk around the block or a short walk in a park is a challenge at first. That could be a great challenge for some people. And like you said, if you start there though and work your way up, you can get yourself to where you might not be an Appalachian Trail through hiker, but maybe you're taking longer hikes and more challenging hikes if that's what you want to do. You might just be happy taking nice walks around your neighborhood or in a park.
Especially in COVID times, it's so important to get out of your house and breathe a little fresh air, get some vitamin D, the sunshine, roll around the grass. There's a lot of science out there that proves getting outdoors is very, very beneficial to your health.
Oh yeah, there's everything from the vitamin D to it, and I'm a strong believer that it's beneficial for our mental health. Right? We're not as a species, we're not meant to be caged in a building for 12 to 18 hours a day.
No. And I've read some articles out there that something as simple as going like primitive camping for, I think it's either 3 or 4 days, has the ability to completely reset your body clock. Like you're not looking at screens at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night. The sun's going down and you can't see anything. Your body will naturally reset itself just from camping.
Yeah, when I come back from a 2+ week backpacking trip, it takes me weeks where there'll be weeks afterwards where my body's in this rhythm where when the sun goes down, I'm falling asleep. And when it comes up, I'm waking up, right? Because that's what you do when you're backpacking, right? It's the joke is hiker's midnight, right? Sun goes down, all right, time to go to bed.
Hiker's midnight. I've never heard that. That's a good one.
And I for myself, and I've heard this from other people. Yeah, you come back feeling re-energized, and every time I just kind of feel like maybe a little bit different perspective on life. Maybe you start learning, and I've talked to a lot of through hikers who have said this. They learn to appreciate the smaller things in life. Materialistic things aren't as important to them anymore.
Through hikers are a different breed, though.
Yes,
those guys are tough, and girls are tough.
Yep. In the areas I've hiked the AT from Wind Gap, Pennsylvania to Hanover, New Hampshire. So that's and I usually hike within the bubble just for safety purposes. I'm out there. You could say I'm solo hiking, but hiking with the bubble, I'm never really out there by myself. I have that safety of knowing that eventually somebody's going to come by if I got hurt, or there's people at the shelter every night or at the campsites. But talking to them, at that point you're talking to people that have either made their way down from Maine or made their way up from Georgia, and there's a toughness in them that doesn't exist in a lot of us. There's a lot of times people will say to me, "Why don't you through hike the Appalachian Trail?" And I don't know that I can. I don't know that I'd have it in me. But and on that same note, though, I've talked to through hikers and anywhere from Connecticut up to Vermont, and I start hearing, a common thing I hear is, "Oh, I can't wait to get to Katahdin. I'll be there soon enough. I only got 2 more states to go." And I don't say this to them, except I got one story where I pretty much did, is if you're so anxious to get to your destination, are you really enjoying the journey? And at what point does that happen where you start focusing more on getting to your destination and just enjoying the journey?
The people that through hike and enjoy it all the way through, when they're finished, do they have a hard time readjusting back into society because they've been gone for so long?
Oh, I've heard a lot of stories of people who just go through a period of just feeling awkward, getting back into. Some people feeling like they're borderline depressed.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That is fascinating. I can see how that could drive someone. Well, what's the Into the Wild? Like Chris McCandless?
Yes.
I could see how someone like that would be driven to that lifestyle of, a dirtbag, just living off the land and not having anything besides nature.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I've never done anything more than 2.5 weeks, but there's just something about the idea that everything I need is on my back. And the only thing I really have to worry about is, okay, do I have a place where I can fill up my water bottles along the way? Um, where can I hike? How far do I want to hike? And what do I want to eat today? What freeze dried meal do I want to eat? Or what flavor Pop Tarts do I want to eat this morning? And it's yeah, I mean, it's just it's a the way I could put it is it's a freedom you can't experience when you go. You lose that experience when you go back into the so-called real world.
Now, in all your years of being outdoors and hiking and being out in the wilderness, do you have a couple of like quick tips or necessary things a person should know before they go out and start exploring and tromping around the woods?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think that right now there are so many resources out there online. There's YouTube's podcast, there's blogs and lists. Do some research first in terms of preparing yourself with your gear. Something I see in the Catskills frequently, and we hear more and more of this in the Catskills and the Adirondacks, these search and rescues of people who are going out there just unprepared. They physically might be able to do it. Some of these people are fit people in their 20s, but I've seen in the winter people hiking up mountains wearing jeans and carrying a 12-ounce Poland Springs water bottle. And it's you're a slip away from being in a life or death situation. Literally, you could find yourself in that situation. So I would tell people, understand what you need. When I say what you need, the 10 essentials, and I'm not going to go through them all here. We
Sure.
won't waste the time doing that, but you can just type in 10 essentials and it'll come up. And and get good shoes. Make sure you got good, properly fitting shoes. Make sure you try on your shoes after you've done some hiking. Don't make the mistake of going in first thing in the morning so these fit nice. I'd recommend get a few miles walking in, or whatever is challenging for you. When when your feet are tired and swollen, try on the shoes. That's the first thing. And know your limitations. Don't go out and try to hike a 10-mile hike in a very rugged area when you're not even sure you can walk around the block yet. I'm going to go from one extreme to the other. Understand your limitations, and don't feel like you need to rush it. If you want to get out there and backpack, take baby steps. There's lots of wilderness campsites where you can hike maybe just a couple of miles to get to it, and have that wilderness experience just to get your feet wet and find out if it's really for you or not. You might go out on a 3-mile overnight backpacking trip, and maybe you say this isn't for me. Better to do that than to spend $2,000 on gear,
Yep.
and find yourself saying, I can't do this.
This sucks. I don't
Yeah,
want to
right.
do
It
this
sucks. I
anymore.
don't want to do it. Right.
Martin, I'm not going to take up a tremendous amount more of your time. I got some kids I've got to get ready for bed. Let's plug your podcast and your book. When's your book come out?
The book, it will be coming out. We're hoping for September. Our target is mid-September.
Okay.
Right now, we're just doing some final editing on it. So, and this is something I was hoping to have done in April. Then it was going to be June. So, but now, because I get to the point, I look through it and I say, "Oh, this is crap. Let me fix. I don't like the way that sounds." But this time, I'm definitely saying, all right, whether it's crap or not, I'm not going to purposely try to publish a book that's crap, but I'm going to, not going to be so hard on myself, maybe. So we're hoping mid-September.
All right. And it's called Switching Gears.
Yes, it is.
It
Yep.
going to be available on Amazon or?
Yes, and it'll be available on Amazon. I don't know what the price is yet. Yeah, the boss / wife / chief executive officer of this operation will probably make that decision.
Can you really put a price on greatness? I mean, the book's going to be great. Everyone knows it.
I hope people enjoy it, and more than enjoying it, I hope they're inspired to get out and try something. Get out and try to, maybe take that short trip that they've wanted to take, but maybe don't feel like they're capable of taking, or maybe they feel like they're too old to take. Maybe it inspires somebody to get out and do that.
Well, if they're not inspired by the book, surely to goodness they'll be inspired by your podcast, because with 3 episodes a week, you have some very interesting people. And the podcast is called Papa Bear Hikes.
Yes, and you're right. You look down that list of guests and you will find somebody on there. If you look, you will find somebody on there. You will listen to their story and you will feel like, yes, I can do this. I want to do this. And that's
available on...
That's on all platforms. It's Spotify, iHeartRadio. It's on everything. So, wherever you go to listen to your music, your podcast, you could find it. You can go to the website, papabearhikes.com, and it's also available through there. There's a listen here button on there, so you can click that on it and hear the episodes. But yeah, I mean, that's been a big part of what I evolved into, is just trying to inspire people. And I've had such inspiring guests. I interviewed somebody last week who backpacked through Scotland. It was a couple, and when I was finished, I said, and these are people that are friends of ours. It was like, I said, "Oh, I got to go tell Wendy we need to go to Scotland," and they laughed. And then Wendy said to me, she goes, "It seems like every time you interview somebody, it's like, I got to go do this. I got to go visit this area." Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many times I feel inspired. I want to go do this.
Well, that's what I tell people I talk to. I live vicariously through other people. I can't have some of those experiences, but if I talk to them and I can get close to it, I can imagine what it'd be like, and sometimes that's enough for me.
I feel the same way. I can't see myself rock climbing, but when I talk to somebody who rock climbs, yeah, I'm glued to it, and I'm listening, and I'm just coming up with questions, wanting to know more about what they do. And yeah, you're right. That's a lot of fun in itself, is the opportunity to talk to people who are experiencing it.
Martin, I've got 2 crazy kids that have to go to sleep. Otherwise I'm going to choke them, because I can hear them up there thumping around. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I'm going to talk to you tomorrow in your podcast, right?
That's right, Zach. Tomorrow, you're going to be on the other side. We're going to flip this around, and I'll be grilling you.
All right. That works, Martin.
All right. Thanks for having me on, Zach.
Absolutely.